Hello and welcome to Cooking the Books with Heather. This week we are going to be making Muscadine Braised chicken thighs from Vivian Howard's Deep Run Roots cookbook. Muscadine grapes, we used those in a recipe before. They're very prevalent around here. They grow around here. I don't know how difficult they are to find everywhere else, but I've already done a lot of the prep for this recipe. I've cut my grapes and de-seeded them, which we showed you in the previous recipe. I think that was Brussels sprouts, grapes, and sausage. So look for, I'll link the recipe below. So you can see how I did that. It takes a long time. So I'm not gonna make you watch me cut 2 cups of grapes and de-seed them because it does take a while. A couple other things about the ingredients. This calls for 6 sprigs of thyme. I went and checked my thyme. I was about to go snip some off and well, it looks pretty bad. We've had a really dry period here and I think that's probably why. It is rainy today, but it's the first rain we've had in like a month. So, and it also calls for chicken stock. I usually have some in the freezer, but I don't. So I'm gonna be using some chicken base that I keep in the refrigerator for instances like this. So not 100% following the recipe, but it should be just fine. So the first thing I'm gonna show you is how to cut the leeks. If I neglected to mention it, because my thyme is not looking so good, I do have some dried thyme. A lot of times with dried herbs, you have to be really careful with the amount you use because it can overpower it. Thyme is a relatively mild flavor, so it should be fine. So she says to use 2 to 3 leeks, 2 cups. What I'm gonna do is go ahead and cut up all of the leeks that I have and then measure out 2 cups. And you can store the leftover. I usually wrap them in paper towels in a plastic bag in the refrigerator and they'll last for a while and I can use them for something else. So first thing you do is slice off the ends. And for this recipe, she wants 1/2 inch rounds. Usually I slice them and do sort of half moons or even quarter them. You know, slice them like that and then slice it like this. Today she wants 1/2 inch rounds. And so the thing about leeks is they get a lot of dirt inside here as they're growing, inside the layers. So usually I put them in a bowl, a large bowl, fill the bowl with water and sort of rub them together to get all of the dirt from between the layers. And usually I'm sort of chopping up the leeks relatively fine when I do that. I'm not sure how that's gonna work with the way these are for this recipe, but we're gonna go ahead and slice them in rounds just like she says. About 1/2 inch. Also, you only generally use the white and light green parts. I've seen people save the darker green parts and use them for stock, so you can do that. When I start getting towards the dark green parts on the outside, I just sort of take off a layer when they start looking bad and then slice some more. Take off a layer, slice some more. I was raised by a grandmother. Well, my grandmother lived with us when I was a child and she was raised during the Depression, and so I think I am influenced by that a lot. I don't like to waste things. Ugh. So we're getting to the point where really we're probably not going to be able to have a whole lot more from this week. So I'm going to go ahead and get to my next one. And do this with all 3 of them. I've sliced my leeks, and you can see there's still some dirt in here. I'm gonna go ahead and run some water in it to try and get some of that dirt off. Be right back. So I'm just kind of swishing these around a little bit to get the dirt on the outside off. They don't look very dirty on the inside, usually sort of where the layers meet, where it starts opening up, that's where you see most of the dirt, and it looks pretty good. So I'm gonna go ahead and measure this and just lay it out on, looks like this will be almost exactly 2 cups chopped this way. There are some pictures in the book, so I know that this is sort of the way that she keeps them all together as sort of rings, because there's like 4 nice pictures of this as it cooks. So I've got a little more than 2 cups, but that's all right. I'm not gonna bother saving extras. I just have some paper towels here to drain these on so they're not too wet. And you can see there's a little bit of dirt in the bottom of the bowl that we got off. So our next step, we're gonna go ahead and season our chicken thighs. So, cause that's what we're braising in the leeks and grapes. So I'm gonna get those ready. We have 6 chicken thighs here. She says for the recipe 4 to 6, but I know for my family, usually we will eat 6 chicken thighs for a meal. So I've got 6, and we're going to first season them with salt and pepper. I'm just gonna, my hands are still a little wet from washing them, so I'm just gonna use the spoon to do this on both sides. This is a mixture of salt and pepper that, you know, it's just the amount of salt and pepper that she says to use. It's easier than doing them separately. And I'm gonna turn them over and get the other side. And now what I'm gonna do is dredge these in some all-purpose flour. So we're just gonna get them nicely covered on both sides. Some of these are really huge. Some of them are much smaller. So good thing about chicken thighs is even if they are technically overcooked, they stay moist and tender and good. And this is a braise, so you know, that's not gonna make a huge difference. We're just gonna have to make sure that the biggest ones are definitely done. And normally I would, for me, I would season my dredge, but not season, so I'd season the flour, but not the chicken before I put it in the flour, but this probably means you use less, honestly. And the chicken gets a better coating. So I've got my chicken thighs all dredged, my hand's a mess, my work surface is a mess, I've got flour everywhere. I'm gonna clean up, and then we're going to get these seared and take them out, start the braising liquid, and then get them back in, and then they go in the oven. So I've already got my oven heated to 350 degrees, which is what it needs to be for these to cook in the oven after they cook on the stove. So be right back. Now's the step where we are going to sear and brown these chicken thighs on one side for about 3 to 5 minutes until it gets nicely brown. Then we're gonna turn it over and cook it on that side for about 3 minutes. I'm just gonna put it back on this tray because they're gonna cook after this. So even though it's raw and that's not entirely raw, it's not gonna be anywhere near really cooked. It's probably gonna take 2 batches with these 6 chicken thighs. So. It's not a lot of oil in the bottom, so I'm hoping it doesn't stick, but. You do put them down skin side first. You're gonna wanna get a good brown and crispiness on the skin side, and So we're gonna, when we put it back in the pan with the braise, we're gonna be careful not to get the liquid on top of the skin so that it stays a little bit crispy and doesn't get rubbery. So now we're just waiting for it to brown. So really, this has been 7-ish minutes, and I ended up turning up the heat a little bit because I think I just wasn't quite hot enough to get the good brown that I was looking for. So we're turning them over, and we're not going to worry as much about browning this other side. We're really just kind of trying to cook that flour a little bit and get this side a little brown. 3-ish minutes on this side, and then we'll do the other batch. It's been about 3 minutes. I'm happy with the level of brown on the other side. Like I said, not super important, but we got a little bit of brown on there. I'm gonna put these back over here. And do the other batch. So my second batch is done now. I like to spit at you, so. The second batch took a little less time because the pan was hotter. I turned it down a little bit more. Now we're supposed to pour out all but about a tablespoon of the fat from in here. Then we add in the leeks that we sliced up. And the rest of the salt in the recipe. This was not complicated math, thankfully. I started at a 5 on my stove, which goes to a 10, so that's medium heat, which is what she suggested. I think I just didn't give it enough time to heat up before I put the chicken in the first batch. Second batch went more to plan, so back down to a 5 now. Don't want to burn anything. I'm gonna call this brown enough. I think it's been about 3 minutes. I forgot to look. And now we're gonna add the grapes that I sliced, and this is some sliced garlic. And we cook this just to sort of get it heated up. Now we add our rosemary. We have some star anise here. I had a hard time finding this at a grocery store. I ordered it on the internet. It's dried. It's relatively easy to find there. And it's okay for them to ship to you, whatever. And half of a cinnamon stick. And this is we would be putting in fresh thyme sprigs, but I've got dried thyme. I'm just gonna stir that all up. Those are some interesting flavors. The star anise, if you've never had that before, it smells like licorice and has a little bit of that flavor. Hopefully won't be too overpowering in this dish. Rosemary certainly smells strong right now. All right, so I've got everything sort of mixed up. So I'm gonna try to fit all of these on top of the grapes and leeks and everything else. All right. Now it's going to be particularly hard for me to pour this in without getting the skin wet, but I'm gonna do my best. We have some apple cider vinegar. I'm gonna try to pour it in all the little holes so that it gets nicely mixed in. Since we're not mixing it up, it'll mix in together. I'm sure it's fine. And then we have some apple cider. And now we have some of the chicken. She calls for the chicken stock that hopefully you've made at home, but sadly I did not have. So I'm only gonna put in as much as I can without drowning the chicken breasts. And if we need to add some later, we can. But so I ended up putting in about half of that. So we're supposed to bring this up to a simmer before we put it in the oven. So our chicken thighs, sorry if I said breasts, we're gonna make sure the liquid comes up to a simmer before we put it in the oven. This is gonna be heavy. The pan is heavy, all the stuff in it's gonna make it even heavier. I'm gonna have to be very careful. Okay, I'm starting to see bubbles right here in the middle, so I think we're good. I'm gonna turn this off and very carefully put it in the oven. All right, I'll set my timer for 40 minutes and we'll be back. This has been in the oven for exactly 40 minutes. I think it all looks good. I'm sure the chicken thighs are done. Now we take these out and set them aside. And they did mostly maintain their crispy skin, so that's good. Like I said, I did not use all of the stock that the recipe called for because I did not want them to submerge. So, but now we take these out and we're going to reduce this sauce, and then we're gonna add some butter to it to make it nice and creamy, but we're going to reduce it by half first. So I've got the stove on medium heat. So, oh, and I'm also going to fish out the things that are not edible, like the stalk of the sprigs of rosemary, the star anise, and the cinnamon stick, which hopefully I can find. There's 2 star anise. I need to find one more of those. Got another little bit of rosemary there. There's the other star anise. And now the cinnamon stick. Which is hiding very, oh wait, there it is. There we go. So we're just going to get this boiling and reducing until it's about half as much as it is, or until it coats the back of a spoon. So I've cooked this down about half. I do have a tendency to over reduce things, so. But now the last step is to swirl in about a tablespoon of butter. And then she says that, oops, I am messy. She says to put these back in the pan on top of the sauce and keep them warm until you serve. But I am going to serve this immediately, so I'm not going to bother putting them back in the sauce. But that's it. And so You see that that coats the back of a spoon. So yeah, that's exactly how she wanted it. I should have checked that before. But anyway, very tasty. All right, that's it. And we're gonna plate it up and let you see how it looks. On this week's episode of Cooking the Books with Heather, we made Muscadine Braised chicken thighs from Deep Run Roots by Vivian Howard. And you'll remember we used fresh local muscadine grapes that are available around here at this time of year in October. And we enjoyed it. It was easy, but a little bit time intensive. Cutting the grapes and taking out the seeds is a process, and it takes a while. We did split the process, so my husband would cut them in half and then I would take out the seeds, and that did help a little bit, but it's just something that takes a while. And for us, my kids don't like warm grapes. They like the chicken, they ate the chicken just fine, but they were not at all interested in eating the sauce with it. And we love braised chicken thighs with leeks and chicken stock, but I think we probably won't be adding the grapes to ours. But it was really good. It's just, for me, it's not worth the effort. I'll use my grapes for something else. In fact, no, there's a triple decker grape hull pie in here, and that is, that's a thing. But there's some juice, there's a juice recipe in here. So next year when we get back to this season, or maybe if we happen to get our hands on quite a few muscadine grapes again, we might make that. You don't have to cut them and seed them. We probably will make this again. It was very good. If you like the grapes and you want to make something that is both delicious and a little impressive, because it's very kind of chefy and has a great sauce, do that. Be a great recipe for you. Like I said, not for us. If you enjoyed watching us make this week, please hit the like and subscribe buttons and come back next week to watch us cook something else.